Walk onto any used car forecourt in Britain right now, and you'll spot them straight away. The cars parked at the far end, the ones with a little more dust on the bonnet than the rest, the ones the salesman quietly steers you away from because he knows something you don't. He knows he's been trying to shift that motor for 4 months, and it hasn't budged an inch. There's a number floating around the trade at the minute that's got dealers rattled. The average used car in Britain took around 35 days to sell through most of 2025. By January it had crept up past 40. But that's the average. Some cars sat there for 128 days before anyone would touch them. 4 months. A whole season of a car doing nothing but losing money while the forecourt lights burned over it. And here's the part that should make you sit up. It isn't the clapped-out bangers gathering all that dust. It's not the high-mileage diesels with a dodgy clutch. It's newish cars, clean cars, cars that cost 30 grand not so long ago, cars that on paper look like a proper bargain today. So why won't anybody buy them? Why are dealers up and down the country genuinely worried about what's sitting on their lots going into 2026? Stick with me, because by the time we get to number 1, you'll understand exactly why some of these have become poison on a British forecourt. And you might just spot one on your own street. Let's start the countdown. Vauxhall Corsa-e. Now the Corsa is about as British high street as a car gets. The petrol one has been near the top of the sales charts for decades. Your mum drove one. Your first car was probably one. So when Vauxhall went electric with it, you'd think they'd have a runaway hit on their hands. Instead, dealers can't give the electric one away. Here's the trouble. The Corsa Electric is predicted to hold on to somewhere between 31 and 35% of its value after 3 years and 36,000 miles. Read that again slowly. If you buy one new for the thick end of £32,000, in 3 years it might be worth about 10. That's roughly 2/3 of your money gone while you were still paying the finance off for a Corsa. And that's the exact reason it clogs up the used forecourts. When a manufacturer is throwing massive discounts at the brand new ones to hit their electric sales targets, why on earth would a buyer pay near the same money for a 2-year-old example? They wouldn't. So the used one sits and sits. The dealer who bought it at auction is now stuck, watching the value drip away by the week. There's a reliability worry lurking underneath it too. Roughly a quarter of Vauxhall owners in owner surveys reported a fault of some kind, and electrical gremlins were the single biggest cause of grief. On an electric car, that's the one thing a nervous buyer really doesn't want to hear. Over on the Speak EV forum, you'll find owners fretting about residual values on their finance deals, doing the sums, working out they're going to hand the keys back, owing more than the thing's worth. When the people who already own the car are that jittery about it, the poor soul trying to sell a used one hasn't got a prayer. And there's a bigger force pushing on all of this, one that landed square on the Corsa. The government's mandate on car makers to sell a rising slice of electric cars every year has forced manufacturers to slash the price of new ones just to hit the quota. When a fresh Corsa Electric is being flogged with thousands off to get it out the door, the 2-year-old one behind it hasn't got a hope. It's the same firm undercutting its own used stock, and the dealer stuck in the middle wears the loss. The Corsa-e isn't a bad little car to drive. Nippy enough round town, cheap to charge, easy to park, and for a driver doing short hops it makes real sense on the running costs. But none of that matters when the numbers are this brutal. A car that everyone recognizes from a brand on every high street, and dealers still can't shift it. That's how strange this market has become. Which brings us to number 4, and this one properly stings, because it should have been adorable enough to sell itself. Fiat 500e. Look at it. It's gorgeous. It's the little Italian city car everyone coos over, reborn as an electric. Cool colors, cheeky face, the sort of thing you'd expect to see buzzing around Chelsea with a wicker basket on the back seat. Fiat had a genuine icon on their hands, and it's flopped hard. Here are the numbers that tell the whole sorry story. Fiat still shifts more than 10,000 of the petrol 500s in Britain year after year. People love them, but the electric 500e sales have shriveled to fewer than 1,000, from an icon to an also-ran in the same showroom, wearing nearly the same badge. It got so bad that the factory in Turin actually stopped building them. Stellantis, the giant that owns Fiat, paused production of the 500e because the demand simply wasn't there. That pause was meant to last about a month. Then they extended it. When a car maker switches off the line on one of its most famous models, that's not a blip, that's a flare going up. The depreciation is just as ugly. A dressed-up 500e, one of the fancy Armani-trimmed ones, cost around £34,000 new. 3 years on it's worth roughly 10.5. It drops faster than a lot of petrol cars, and faster than plenty of other electric cars too, which is a real achievement when you think about how quickly electric cars have been tumbling. So why won't people buy it used? Same rotten maths as the Corsa, with an extra twist. The 500e is small, the battery is small, The range is modest, and the price, new or used, always felt punchy for what you got. Buyers looked at the little Fiat, looked at what else that money bought them, and walked. Meanwhile, the petrol 500 next to it, cheaper and simpler, kept flying out the door. Same shape, totally different fortune. Here's a question worth chewing on while we move up the list. If a car this pretty, with this much history, can't find buyers, what hope has a car got that nobody even recognizes? Funny you should ask, because that's exactly what's parked at number 3. DS9. Right, hands up if you've ever seen one of these on a British road. Go on. Anyone? Thought not. And that's the whole problem. DS is the posh spin-off brand from Citroën, and the DS9 is their big executive saloon. It's meant to go toe-to-toe with the BMW 5 Series, the Mercedes E-Class, the Audi A6. Long, low, comfy, full of clever French design and quilted leather that genuinely feels lovely inside. On its own terms, it's a handsome, plush motorway cruiser. The trouble is nobody wants it, and I mean nobody. Across the whole of Europe, DS sells something like 100 DS9s a month, and most of those go to French business folk buying French to keep the home team happy. In Britain, one owner said he'd never once seen another one on the road. When he looked up the registration figures, they were so tiny, he reckoned half of them were probably dealer demonstrators that never found a private buyer at all. Now think about what that does to a used one. The DS9 sits right inside Britain's top 10 fastest depreciating cars. It falls faster than that BMW, faster than that Mercedes. New buyers pay a premium for the DS badge, and then used buyers refuse to give the badge a second thought. Because here's the cold truth about the executive car market. People buying a big saloon are loyal. They know their BMW. They trust their Audi. They are not going to gamble 40 grand, or even 15 grand used, on a brand they can't place and can't picture their neighbor recognizing. So the dealer who ends up with a DS9 in part exchange is in a proper pickle. It's a lovely car, it's worth buttons, and the queue of people wanting one is near enough empty. It'll sit on that forecourt through spring, through summer, and into the following winter. A beautiful French ghost that the salesman prays somebody, anybody, will take off his hands. Some in the trade will tell you the DS9 is one of the best value used cars in Britain if you can stomach the badge. All that leather, all that comfort, a car that cost near 40 grand new, going for a fraction of it, but value on paper means nothing if the phone never rings. And for the DS9, the phone stays silent. You'd think a car this rare being this unloved would be the bottom of the barrel, not even close, because at number 2, we've got a car that a manufacturer literally gave up on and pulled out of Britain altogether, GWM Ora 03. You might know this one by its old name. When it first landed here it was called the Funky Cat, which is either charming or daft depending on your mood. It's made by Great Wall Motor, one of the big Chinese firms, and it was part of that whole wave of Chinese electric cars that swept into Britain over the last couple of years. Cheap, cheerful, well-equipped, retro looks that borrow a bit from a classic Beetle and a bit from a Porsche if you squint. And it has turned into one of the worst money pits on the used market. The Ora 03 holds on to somewhere between about 26 and 32% of its value after 3 years, depending on which set of figures you take. Put a number on it. Buy one new for close to £32,000, and 3 years later you're looking at around £8,000. That is not depreciation, that's a car melting in your driveway. But here's the killer detail, the one that tells you everything. In 2026, Great Wall Motor pulled the Ora 03 out of Britain completely, withdrew it from sale. After consistently weak demand, they simply stopped offering it new here. And when that happens, panic sets in among anyone holding a used one, because a buyer's first thought is the obvious one. If the company couldn't be bothered to keep selling it, who's going to service it? Who's got the parts? What's it worth next year? The answers are all bad, and buyers can smell it. The owner reviews don't help the cause either. Opinion is wildly split. Some people who traded down from a pricier electric car say the Ora pleasantly surprised them, decent value, comfy enough. But others call it flatly the worst car they've ever driven. The infotainment gets a proper kicking, clunky and confusing, the ride's fidgety. And the driver monitoring camera is so twitchy that owners on the Speak EV forum swap tips on how to calm it down before it drives them round the bend, beeping at them for blinking. The lane keeping assist yanks at the wheel on a narrow country lane like it's got a mind of its own. So you've got a car that depreciates like a stone, from a brand that's just walked away from the market, with a split personality on quality. On a British forecourt in 2026, that's about as toxic a combination as you can build. The dealer who took a punt on one is now the loneliest man on the lot. And yet none of these is the slowest selling car in Britain. That title, the actual measured champion of sitting still, belongs to number 1. And you have almost certainly seen this one, because plenty of them sold when they were new. Mini Electric Countryman. This is the big one. According to Auto Trader, the largest used car marketplace in the country, the electric Mini Countryman was officially the slowest-selling used car in Britain in 2025. On average, it took 128.5 days to find a buyer. Compare that to the fastest sellers of the year, electric cars like the Peugeot E208, gone in about 17 days. 17 days versus 128. Same electric fuel, wildly different destiny. So what went wrong with the Mini? It's not an ugly car. It carries that trendy Mini badge that Britain has a genuine soft spot for. It's roomy, it's stylish, it's got that upmarket German engineering feel inside. On the face of it, this should have walked out the door. The problem is what's under the skin and what's happened to the money. Start with the range. The electric Countryman doesn't even crack 250 miles on a charge, which by the standards of 2025 and 2026 is short. Rivals costing similar money go further, charge quicker, and give you more room for your cash. When a buyer lines up their options and the Mini comes last on the one number that matters most to a nervous electric buyer, the Mini gets crossed off. Then there's the resale horror, and this is where the owners themselves tell the story better than any spreadsheet. One Countryman owner described handing their car in with just 12,000 miles on it, in perfect nick, fully serviced, and being offered £14,000 less than they'd paid, while the very same model was being advertised online for 9 or 10 grand more than the trade would give them. Sit with that gap for a second. That's the chasm the whole used market has fallen into. Buyers see a scary price, sellers get offered peanuts, and the dealer in the middle is left holding a car that everyone thinks is worth something different. And the fear that runs underneath all of it, the thing owners kept coming back to, is the battery. The worry that one day it'll need replacing, and the bill will be, in the words of one owner, stupid money. Nobody knows for sure what a battery swap costs down the line, and that uncertainty alone is enough to freeze a used buyer solid. They'd rather buy the petrol version and sleep at night. So there it is. The slowest selling used car in the country isn't some rusty relic. It's a smart, modern, badge-heavy family crossover that ticked every box except the ones that suddenly count. Short range, savage depreciation, and a big question mark hanging over that battery. 128 days on a forecourt, quietly losing its owner and its dealer a fortune. Now step back and look at all 5 of them lined up. The Corsa, the 500e, the DS9, the Ora, the Countryman. What do they have in common, apart from being unloved? Every single one, bar the French Ghost, is electric. And that's the real story here, the one the dealers are whispering about over their tea in the morning. For years we were told the electric revolution was coming and residual values would sort themselves out. Instead, manufacturers have been forced to discount new electric cars so hard, chasing their targets, that they've knocked the legs out from under every used one behind them. A 3-year-old electric car in Britain can now lose 40% or more of its value, sometimes half of it, in the first year alone, on the pricier models. And when the used market gets flooded with cars that scare buyers on price, and worry them on range, and terrify them on battery bills, you end up with exactly what we've got. Forecourts full of clean, capable, nearly new motors that nobody will touch. Here's the twist though, and it's the bit worth remembering. Every one of these cars is, right now, a genuine bargain for the brave. That savage depreciation is somebody else's loss, and it could be your gain. The person who bought the Ora new took the hammering. The person who buys it used at 8 grand, keeps it 10 years, and never worries about resale, might have got themselves a cracking cheap runabout. The tears have already been cried, the money's already gone, what's left is a lot of car for very little. That's the strange beauty of a market in a panic. The cars nobody wants today are the cars that make the smartest buyers grin. You just have to be the sort of person who buys a car to drive it, not to sell it. So I'll leave you with this. The forecourt is full of these quiet, dusty bargains, waiting. And the question is which kind of buyer you are. The one who chases the badge and the resale and pays through the nose for the privilege. Or the one who spots the 4-month-old dust, does the maths, and drives off with a 30 grand car for the price of a used hatchback. I know which one I'd rather be. Tell me down in the comments. Have you ever owned one of these 5? Did it treat you right, or did it break your heart when you came to sell it? And which car on your own street do you reckon has been sitting unsold the longest? Drop it below, because I read every one, and honestly, some of your stories are better than anything I could write. If this changed how you look at that shiny electric bargain in the window, do me a favor and hit like, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because next time, we're digging into the brand new cars rolling off the boat that dealers already know they'll never sell. And trust me, one of them will surprise you. Until then, keep your eyes on the far end of the forecourt. That's where the real stories are parked.